Search teams in Lahaina will begin focusing on multi-story residential and commercial properties today. They have concluded a search of 100% of the single-story residential properties in the disaster area. The death toll now stands at 115, with 850 still unaccounted for. Meanwhile, President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are in Reno, Nevada this morning after spending yesterday getting an up-close look at the damage in Lahaina. The president also met with survivors and expressed gratitude to first responders. Governor Green was there with the president and First Lady on the Valley Isle, but he's here in studio now to talk more about their visit and plans moving forward. So we want to go ahead and welcome back Governor Green and say good morning. Thanks for stopping by.
Good morning.
How was the president's visit, and what did he say to you?
He was extraordinary. He stepped up immediately for us. You know, it only took 6 hours for him to turn around the disaster declaration that we asked for, which opens up a huge amount of resources. He's offering even more resources. There's categories, I call it C through G. That means extra infrastructure rebuilding, which they're authorizing also. He's authorized 100% support, like 100% of reimbursement for the first 30 days, and then of course it gets re-upped and re-upped. He was amazing. I know now why he became president. He spent hours, not just with us, but a 2-hour period where there were 600 people in the Lahaina facility that we had people gather, and he went and talked to every one of them. He went to every table, touched every person that wanted to be touched on the shoulder. He embraced them. He spent hours with me, of course, sharing that he has the utmost respect for everyone who stepped up, but he has a special place in his heart for firefighters. It's just a reality about President Joe. He's confided in me that his catastrophe in life when he was 29, when he lost his wife and daughter, who was 15 months old, impacted him in a way that now we understand better. Senator Inouye, he shared with me, and he shared with people yesterday, helped lift him up when he was becoming a senator. And now, here, several decades later, he is feeling the need to repay that debt of life gratitude, and he was demonstrating that yesterday.
Can we talk more about the plan moving forward and housing situation?
Yes.
That transitional housing, and can you remind everybody about the services that are available and that will be ending?
Yes, so we've moved virtually everyone from the conjugate shelters, meaning like big shelters. All but I think 3 people now are in hotels and Airbnbs, and that will go on. I have an enormously long contract with the Red Cross to keep people who were victims and who are citizens and so on in those hotels and in those other safe facilities where their privacy. But after a period of time, about 30 days, we'll start seeing some people lose benefits, people who maybe were affected but didn't lose their home, people who are COFA migrants and who are part of our community but don't have all the benefits. And so I'm going to need to rapidly make decisions about transitional housing and get some of that housing, which the federal government will cover, into our state, up and going. So I am listening to people. I know that they want to be able to grieve and build and plan, and I am there with them. But some decisions for transitional housing, temporary housing, will have to be made, and I'll do all I can to make sure that some of those contracts and some of that resource and building goes to our local people. We're going to all be in this together, but some decisions will be made fast so that we can get those structures up transitionally long in advance of building Lahaina back.
So no definite plan yet after the 30 days, but of course it's being worked on rapidly.
Well, I have one opportunity to acquire 196 smaller homes, not like the tiny homes, but that can be comfortable for people, to accommodate 2 people each. I have another plan on my desk to look at 500 homes. Lots of people are reaching out, and I'm so grateful for that. It has to be done somewhat quickly, and FEMA will cover it. And we made a mistake back with COVID. In COVID, we could have acquired some hotels when we were putting people in quarantine. And had we done that, and the feds would have paid for it, we would have those available to us now, although they mostly would have been on Oahu. I'm not going to make that same mistake. In other words, I'm not going to let the state make the mistake of not acquiring some infrastructure so that we can use it now and in the future.
You mentioned hotels, so that brings me to my next question. In terms of tourism, the numbers are down, not just on Maui, but on other islands.
Yes.
What are we doing to kind of increase the numbers back up again?
So I'll be making a compelling case nationally and internationally, day in and day out, that while people should not be traveling to West Maui right now, unless they are part of the recovery effort or live in that region, people should still come to the other parts of Maui because that will be life-sustaining resource for those who have jobs. We will focus on the rebuild, and emergency responders, professionals will be working on that to protect people's lives and to move forward. But tourism should go on because that's how many of the people will survive. And frankly, they need something to focus on other than the tragedy for themselves, psychologically. The rest of the state, tourism will resume. And I have to be just blunt with you. When it's not in the paper every day and on the international newswave seeing the tragedy, people will probably come back. And it's important for us to heal, as we saw after 9/11, as we saw after the collapse of the financial systems. Hawaii does need some significant number of travelers. But a lot of the economic recovery, specifically in West Maui, is going to be reconstruction dollars, people removing debris, people building new temporary shelters.
And finally, your final message to those on Maui?
I'm heartsick. I'm angry because we all feel anger. But right now, I'm going to try to channel these feelings that we have. We are angry, we are heartsick, but that has to be constructively channeled into rebuilding and to be compassionate for people. Know that every resource that can be gotten will be gotten for the people of Maui, and there's a lot of work being done to make sure that long-term we recover the way that the people of Lahaina want. There's going to have to be some trust, and I'm going to make sure I reach out to everyone to do the best we can in the trust space.
All right, Governor Green, we appreciate you, and we thank you so much for joining us once again in studio.
Thank you.